They used to compete for screens. Now, they compete for cognition. Welcome back to FluxFolio Finance. Today, we peer into a deal that may be remembered not for its size, but for its timing. In June 2025, Meta quietly acquired a 49% stake in Scale AI for $15 billion. Not a full buyout, not an acquisition of assets, a co-ownership of the future. To understand why this matters, we have to understand what Scale AI is and what it represents. Scale doesn't build chatbots. It doesn't design semiconductors. What it does is annotation, fine-grained, structured labeling of the raw data that feeds artificial intelligence. In simple terms, it makes sense of chaos. Imagine training an LLM to recognize a tank, a tumor, or a lie. You need tagged data, clean, consistent, and deeply contextualized. That's what Scale does. But here's the twist. Scale's clients aren't just tech firms. They include the US Department of Defense, intelligence agencies, and national labs. In fact, Scale is one of the quiet backbones of America's AI military complex. It doesn't sell guns. It sells the logic behind target selection, battlefield awareness, and satellite interpretation. So when Meta buys nearly half of that, what is it really buying? Access. Not just to data, but to the flows of decision-making that shape AI's alignment with national power. This is not about content moderation. This is about sovereignty. Because in 2025, we've crossed a line. AI is no longer about productivity tools or digital assistants. It is now infrastructure, political, economic, and strategic. And whoever controls the learning layer controls the language of the future. Meta's move comes amid a broader storm. Microsoft, tied closely to OpenAI, is funneling billions into custom silicon and cloud supremacy. NVIDIA, once the chip vendor, is now the orchestrator of vertical AI empires. Google, Amazon, and Apple are racing to secure their own proprietary models, datasets, and inference pathways. But Meta's bet is different. It's not just trying to own the hardware or the models. It's trying to own the substrate, the annotated foundation on which all cognition stands. This isn't a headline deal. It's a scaffolding maneuver. And it tells us two things. First, that Meta sees a future where LLMs are commoditized, but differentiated by their training routes. And second, that the US government is no longer an observer in the AI arms race. It is a buyer, a partner, and through firms like Scale, a stakeholder. So what are ripple effects? The ethical risks of militarized data, the geopolitical response from rivals like China and the EU, and the deeper question, what happens when artificial intelligence stops being a product and starts becoming policy? That's the weaponization of insight. Power once came from oil, then from data. But in 2025, power comes from interpretation. And Meta, with its $15 billion bet on Scale AI, isn't just buying an annotation company. It's buying a seat at the table, where reality gets defined. Let's unpack what this means. First, through the lens of ethics. Scale AI's role in defense isn't hypothetical. It is already involved in mission planning, autonomous system calibration, and geospatial intelligence for the Pentagon. Its annotations help AI recognize insurgents from civilians, threats from noise, coordinates from chaos. That's not a corporate service. That's battlefield logic. And when a commercial firm, especially one with a social media empire and a history of privacy infractions, becomes a stakeholder in those processes, the moral calculus blurs. What happens when the same company that curates your newsfeed also labels drone targets? What happens when the lines between recommendation engine and reconnaissance merge? We are now in the realm of algorithmic sovereignty, where data isn't just predictive, but prescriptive, where AI doesn't just reflect the world, it selects which version of the world to believe. This has triggered regulatory alarm bells, particularly in Europe. The EU's AI Act, already the most ambitious legislative effort to constrain machine learning, has now expanded its scope to include foundational training data. Any company with dual-use AI, civilian and military, must disclose annotation protocols. In Brussels, Meta's investment is being framed as corporate militarization. In Berlin, some policymakers call it a strategic red flag. And in Beijing, it's seen as provocation. China has responded swiftly, directing its own annotation giants, iFlyTek, SenseTime, and MegViki, to deepen ties with the PLA. It has redoubled its investment in sovereign data pipelines and is reportedly creating a data alignment shield for critical infrastructure AI. This isn't just a tech race. It's an arms race, one fought not with missiles, but with models. And just like in the nuclear era, there is now a doctrine of deterrence, a belief that whoever controls the learning base has the first mover advantage in any domain, economic, military, or cultural. But here's the deeper question. If Meta, Microsoft, and others become quasi-sovereign AI states, what role does actual government have? Because governance in 2025 isn't happening through constitutions. It's happening through training sets, through what the model sees, what it's allowed to forget, what it's rewarded for predicting. This is not fiction. This is foundation model politics. The implications are profound. Judges are using AI to triage bail decisions. Doctors are letting AI summarize diagnostics. Newsrooms, financial firms, even governments are relying on synthetic insights that originate, in part, from the work of annotators in labs owned by tech giants. And the public still thinks AI is just a smarter search bar. So where do we go from here? Some suggest algorithmic transparency, auditable models, open-source guardrails. Others push for nationalization of training infrastructure, placing annotation and model refinement under government control as a form of digital sovereignty. And a few, more radical still, argue that AI itself should be treated like a utility, that companies like Meta should not own cognition, only deliver it. But these debates are only just beginning. What we know today is this. Meta's stake in Scale AI marks the moment when data went from resource to regime. And in that shift, we must ask not just who profits, but who decides. Thank you for watching FluxFolio Finance. Like, comment, and subscribe if this opened your eyes to the invisible architecture beneath global power. Is Meta building the future or buying the blueprint for control? Until next time, stay sharp, stay human, and stay free.